C. HAPTER 26. T. E. D. ULCE. C. AVERNS. A. ND. P. UEBLO. M. YTHOLOGY. In his article, Alien Invaders, researcher, Tal, Levesque reveals the following information in regards to the ancient, epidemic draconian conflict which has, for thousands of years, raged upon, within and beyond planet Earth. The draconian group is a confederation. They are reptilian humanoids, with subgroups the serpent race, from Sirius. Note: Sirius figures prominently in reports of humanoids, and also reports of reptiloid, amphiboid and insectoid activity. In this regard the Sirius system is much like the Sol system itself. Some of these forces apparently collaborate with each other, whereas others are in conflict with each other. Branton, they set up bases inside Venus, the Earth, etc. An ancient conflict, the Indians of the southwest USA, have legends of tall, fair-haired beings. They also have legends about the little people. Both are said to have skycraft, or saucers. American Indians speak of underground races, surface races and people living above, in the heavens. The Navajo legends state they once lived underground, together with the Coyoteros and the white people, below a mountain near Silverton, Colorado. Note: Mt. Hesperus, meaning Venus, is sacred to them. After coming to the surface they went south and settled in the canyons of the Doneta area, near Navajo Dam, between Aztec and Dulce, New Mexico. Could the ancestors of the Pueblo Indians have been the ones who originally excavated the lower levels of the Dulce base and the lower tunnels which have apparently existed within the deepest levels of the base for centuries if not millennia? If so, then why did they revert to a low-technology culture once they reached the surface? Could it be that the scientific factions of their race either established an interaction with the Greys, and/or left the planet altogether, leaving the rest to fend for themselves? Hopi legends say that their ancestors were driven to the surface by another faction of their own kind who turned to practicing sorcery. Apache legends, according to Robert Morningsky, 309, state that the Two Hearts, or the children of the lizard, drove the Pueblos to the surface after they had invaded their underground domain. Could both scenarios be true? In other words, could one scientific faction have remained behind in a collaboration with the reptilians, with another faction leaving the caverns in starships and/or migrating to the surface, world and/or elsewhere through these ancient and massive underground systems? Branton, they then set up defense sites and expanded south towards Mount Taylor and west into Arizona. Built atop high mesas were fortresses and towers consisting of 3 or more stories. The Pajaritan Pueblo Indians have a legend that they emerged from the Inner Earth, near the Great Sand Dunes National Monument, in Colorado. They then traveled down the Rio Grande, setting up pueblos. The area now known as Los Alamos was considered evil, the home of underworld, little people, from which would come the curse of the gourd of death, and so it did, in the form of the nuclear bomb. The Gray's little people, Deros. According to New Mexican folk myth, Montezuma was born near Taos and trained by beings who lived in caverns, inside Pueblo Peak. Note: at nearby Blue Lake, UFOs have been seen entering and exiting the water. The Aztec of Mexico, who some think originally came from here, believed that the sun god needs blood and sacrificed humans for its nourishment. They killed over 20,000 people each year. Near Taos, in a cave above the Lucero River, not far from Frijoles Canyon, is where human sacrifices were made, some say even now. Note: according to one source from Baltimore, MD, one man encountered a reptiloid being while spending the night in a cave with black rock walls near some springs, north of San Cristobal, not far from Taos. NM Branton, members of secret society groups in Taos, have been found beheaded. Like Arthur Manby, who told about a secret, Aztland, hot springs, roughly 11 miles northwest of Toas. It is flanked by petroglyphs on the canyon walls. 310. Cultists venerate the Mayan Aztec death god, Camazotz, who took the form of a winged creature who removes the heads of his followers who displeased him. Research indicates the high priesthood had contact with winged reptoids who were known to devour humans, and the creatures were seeking various articles of commerce, possibly gold, psychoactive hallucinogenic plants, etc. Throughout Puebloland, on pottery, cave and kiva walls, will be found decorations representing a feathered or horned snake, the plumed Serpent, Quetzalcoatl. From the Pecos Pueblo, Montezuma is said to have led his followers south and founded Tenochtitlan, Mexico City. The manipulators of the mind, alien civilizations have contacted some of the Earth's inhabitants and practiced various forms of thought control on those they have contacted. Officer Herb Shermer, Betty and Barney Hill, and others were given post-hypnotic suggestions to try and make them forget the contacts. Only through strength of character and hypnotic regression were they able to talk about their experiences. The aliens use us by reaching into our minds directly. We should not respect any group which uses a method of interfering with our brains, normal electrical patterns. They use devices which produce a combination of flashing lights, pulsating sounds, ELF and EM fields. It is also insidious to put implants, brain transceivers, into human beings. And worse, to kill them for their blood and other nutrient substances, vital energy resident within their vital fluids. The Greys, the short, big heads, are mercenaries. They interface with humans in secret societies and the fascist military governmental complex. An interconnected web manipulates the surface Earth cultures. The 7 feet minus 8 feet tall reptoid Drac have been seen giving directions to the Greys. The reptoids get their orders from the elite winged Draco. Note, the actual chain of command seems to begin with the rebel angels or poltergeists, which utilize biosynthetic constructed physical forms to operate in the physical dimension. These bodies have been recovered from crashed disks and seem to consist of a 311 sponge-like substance throughout, followed by the paraphysical mantis insectoid type beings, and the winged and white Dracos are Mothman, as John Keel refers to them in his book, The Mothman Prophecies, although it is not certain which of these three are superior, and then the large lizard, or crocodilian-like, saurian bipeds or reptiloids, a dark larga-muzzled 5 featuring tall, approximately, race that are sometimes referred to as the iguanas, a satanic, priest, class of human-sized reptiloids that have been seen wearing dark hooded robes and seem to be a cross between the tall reptiloids and the smaller greys, a race of frog-faced, amphiboid lizards approximately 4 feet tall, various types of greys, with blue-gray, brown-gray, white-gray, green-gray, tan-gray, etc. skin, as well as the genetically engineered, hybrid reptiloids and greys which possess insectoid and other genetic characteristics, followed by various non-hominoid reptilians such as the sea saurians, giant subterranean serpents, the so-called dragon worms, etc., which have been encountered within the deeper cavern systems or in the sea, and which seem to be used more for psychic energy channels. All of these various alien branches collectively make up what has been referred to as the serpent races. Branton. The winged serpent, the reptilian amphibian humanoids have been interacting with Earth for ages. Many contactees and abductees repeatedly describe an insignia of a flying serpent on a shoulder patch, a badge, a medallion, or a helmet. Note, snakes have skeletal indications of atrophied arms and legs. There have been many transformations and metamorphosis. The serpent race, like snakes, lives underground. Yet, they can come out, in their saucers, and fly. The giants, elite caste, man, the Orion Betelgeusian group, have outpost bases inside the planet Mars. They are also known as the Titans, the Brother S, etc. Note, this Mars Orion reference is the only source we have which actually claims to identify an extraterrestrial colony of the giant humans, Titans, Anakim, or Nephili. The Orion star Betelgeuse is most often referred to by some contactees in reference to the giants. Some of the residents of the Jovian moons claim that they previously came from or returned from Rigel and Betelgeuse, apparently after being driven from those systems by the draconian infiltration and invasion of Orion. 312. Although we have come across little corroborative information concerning the extraterrestrial activity of this branch of the human race, there have been roundabout accounts of possible interaction with the Orion constellation. As for a possible subterranean presence, one source claimed that several years ago a man was let down a cable into a gigantic cavern which had been broken into by a deep oil well shaft in Texas. The man claimed to have met, within the caverns, giant 11 to 12 featuring tall humans, Anakim Nephili, who claimed that the Creator and the angelic forces had ordered their civilization to remain in these caverns and to separate themselves from surface races where they might otherwise be worshipped as gods by ignorant humans because of their stature. This man was told, however, that this condition would last only until the day of judgment purification, at which point the giants would once again be allowed to return to the surface world. This doesn't mean that the races do not interact with other interstellar federations who are less inclined to worship them. Several years ago, one woman by the name of Margaret Rogers claimed to have visited the underground civilization of the Nephili, deep below Mexico. They said that their name for God is Tamil, which was also confirmed by the Telosian, Bani, or Sharula, whose people reportedly have considerable interaction with the giants. They also told Ms. Rogers that one day man would develop interstellar craft and be so presumptuous as to approach the very throne of the Creator and invade his personal domain, and thus invoke his wrath upon the whole planet. Could she have been referring to the Eternity Gate, within the Orion Nebula, which lies far beyond the Orion star cluster, or to the New Jerusalem, Command, a virtual city of light which has reportedly been seen by government astrophysicists to be emerging from the Orion Nebula vortex and is now on a direct course to Earth, due to arrive near the end of the 3rd millennium, AD. Another source has claimed that many centuries ago these human giants left their underground cities and set out on a great expedition to the stars, only to return in later centuries from their great interstellar migration or expedition. Upon returning, they re-established their ancient and vast cavern cities beneath Alaska and elsewhere, some of which had been overrun by degenerate, animal men, from the Earth's interior during their absence, who were particularly cruel to the natives on the surface. Ancient records state that the Anax, Nephili or Titans once dwelled in the Middle East and also the ancient Gobi region, but 313 now live mainly in large cavernous systems deep below Alaska, Oregon, Northern California, Utah, Texas, Mexico, some of the Pacific Islands, and also other parts of the western flank of North and Central America. One friend of mine informed me of a very vivid abduction type dream, in which I came to her and took her to a cliff in the western Rockies, somehow causing part of the cliff to open up like a door with the rock moving inward and down, and took her through an inclining tiled tunnel and to a large metallic door with a type of keyboard affair next to it. She claimed that in this altered state, or alternate personality mode, I used my left hand to punch in a quick succession on the keyboard, a kind of code that opened the metallic door, and we entered. Normally in my conscious life, which does not recall this incident other than vague subjective, dreamlike images and unsolicited thoughts, I am right-handed. She claimed that I took her inside, and we met some friendly humanoid beings about 12 to 14 feet tall who wore silvery uniforms which seemed to be alive, in her words, or emanated life energy. During another experience, she claims, I had taken her to large underground chambers below the Salt Lake Valley where I was directing some kind of operation and instructing humans from the surface, who were also experiencing a double existence in this other world. My impressions are that although this collective-based alternate identity was originally psychotically induced by the Greys during past abduction experiences, as they have done with numerous abductees, this alternate self was to a certain degree reprogrammed by more friendly alien forces and became involved with various humanoid cultures within the inner Earth, who are making a common defense against the reptilian invasion of their native territories. Aside from the obvious angelic influences that have guided my life, the interaction that more benevolent beings have apparently had with my alter ego would help to explain the steady flood of inspiration, which has resulted in the manifestation of this current project. So I am certainly not the ultimate source or mastermind behind these Nexus Dulce files, but merely a willing, and sometimes semi-willing, vessel, for other sources you might say, who have continually inspired me and led me towards a mother lode of information which would otherwise defy the laws of probability or synchronicity. These sources, based on my own personal perceptions, would include humanoid giants, hybrids, Sasquatch, dwarfs, extraterrestrials, Agarshans, deep-level surface military 314 agencies who are against the draconian agenda, and what might be considered Farian type people of an ethereal quality yet no less human than us. Should it sound strange that there are also people dwelling within this planet who are also against draconian collectivism and who value freedom and liberty as hopefully most of us do? There is, indeed, a war going on right under our feet that is just as intense as anything that might have been conceived by your average science fiction or fantasy author. If this sounds unusual, then consider that an entire, lost world existing throughout the crust of this planet, which has for ages remained separated from the often superstitious residents of the surface, would tend to develop a state of high strangeness, at least from our perspective. The outer world would probably seem as alien to them as their world seems to us. The separation and distinction between these two worlds, aside from the fact that it is usually only the most powerful secret societies who have access to both worlds, is often augmented by the fact that most of those throughout history who have encountered the outskirts of this lost world often reacted with fear of the unknown when they encountered something strange and unusual in connection with these portals, and normally wanted nothing more to do with them, interpreting the experiences according to their own frame of reference, and the reality of this other world below would surface in a more diluted form through legends, myths, folklore and such. If, as I am convinced, many abductees are living similar nocturnal, double lives, with interventionist or non-interventionist aliens, or both, we might look no farther than our own unconscious minds in order to find the aliens. In fact, from one perspective the following might be true: we have found the aliens, and they are us, Branton. Tal continues, the elves will engage, the Draco, in battle around this planet. Most will die. Revelation 12:7. Now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon and his angels. The elite corporate military governmental complex of this country, and its connection to one world control cliques, are currently in negotiation with the Draco. They have threatened, fail-safe, if the Draco, the serpent race, and their minions, the Greys and their human agents do not stop exploitation of the earth. In other words, an elite control group who have moved most of their chosen race to underground cities on the Moon and Mars, are willing to launch Super 315 dirty nuclear weapons from deep sub-city bases, manned by patriotic, mind-controlled orphans to poison this entire planet and kill everyone, so that no one can have the jewel Earth, the divine tear. Take note of the references made by contactee Alex Collier and others to the effect that some of the elite military-industrial Alternative 3 bases on the Moon and Mars were sabotaged by the Draco in 1985, and that the Draco are currently targeting the Alternative 2 underground bases below the surface of the Earth. This would tend to polarize the secret government factions even more. Those who, once in alliance with the Reptilian Collective, are now opposing the Draco-Orion collectivist forces. These are those who had not succumbed to the absolute psychological control of the Draconian Collective, or have not been infected by collectivitis, you might say, when the Dracos made their move and took possession of many of the former joint operational bases. Unless the leaders of this military-industrial underground come clean with Congress and the patriotic citizens of the United States of America and ask for their assistance and open up their underground empire for all Americans, and not just the fraternal elite, then these people will find themselves in a very difficult situation, trying to keep draconian infiltrators at bay on the one hand and attempting to appease the wrath of an awakening giant in the form of freedom-loving Americans on the other. Americans who will begin demanding access to the underground network which they paid for via taxes and other collective economic losses. Branton, The Secret of B. The following is a list of those organizations which repeatedly advertised on NBC during the first 19 Feet B programs, a weekly, Our TV series. Advertising support came from General Electric, who happens to own NBC and has worked on the government alien saucer projects U.S. Army Recruiting Command, AT&T, Eastman Kodak, Union Carbide, Chrysler Corp., Mars, Inc., Warner Lambert, Ford, Sears Roebuck & Co., McDonald's, Sale Corp., Kellogg's. Note, for years it was impossible to buy a video set of the B series. As of the beginning of 1995, the B series was released on video and became available through major video outlets. Branton, the reptoids are returning to Earth. The invaders are here. We must convince a disbelieving world that the nightmare has already 316 begun. Their purpose, to make Earth their world. It is not over for the human race. Freedom fighters, join together. For the sake of all of U.S. 317. C. H.